There is a name that has been claiming you for 400 years, and it may have been lying the entire time. Not maliciously, not deliberately, but quietly, the way names do, inherited without question, worn like a birthright, printed on tartans and crests and coats of arms sold to tourists in Edinburgh gift shops. A surname that says, this is your clan, this is your glen, this is your blood. For generations, that was enough. The name was the proof. Then genetic genealogists started testing the men who carried 13 of Scotland's rarest, most fiercely guarded clan surnames. And in case after case, the Y chromosome, the piece of DNA passed almost unchanged from father to son, generation after generation, told a story the tartan never mentioned. Some of these men matched their clan's expected genetic signature perfectly. Others did not match it at all. And a few carried a signature so unexpected, so geographically displaced, that researchers had to ask a question Highland tradition was never built to answer. What if the clan was never one bloodline to begin with? And what if some of it was never fully Scottish? This is the story of 13 rare surnames, the clan system that gave them meaning, and the DNA evidence suggesting that Highland identity was always more complicated than the myth allowed. For most of the last few centuries, the story of a Scottish clan surname was considered simple, almost self-evident. A clan was, in the popular imagination, an extended family, a single patriarch, a shared bloodline, descendants spreading outward across a glen or a set of islands, all carrying his name and, by extension, his blood. MacDonald meant descent from Donald. MacGregor meant descent from Gregor. The surname was the genealogy. Historians and clan societies built entire identities on this premise. Tartans were assigned. Crests were registered. Origin stories, some genuinely ancient and some invented far later during the Victorian Romantic revival of Highland culture, reinforced the idea that a clan name meant a single, traceable, biological lineage stretching back to a founding chief. It was a tidy story. It gave scattered, displaced descendants, many of them now in Canada, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand after centuries of emigration and Highland clearance, something solid to hold on to. A name that meant blood. A blood that meant belonging. It made sense. And for a long time, nobody had the tools to test it. The first crack appeared, unglamorously, in genealogical paperwork rather than a laboratory. Researchers cataloging clan land records, taxman's rolls, and rent registers from the 16th and 17th centuries began noticing something the Romantic version of clan history had quietly smoothed over. Not everyone living under a clan's name and protection was actually descended from its chief. Highland society, it turned out, was not simply a family tree. It was a political and military alliance system. Smaller families, broken septs, and even entire unrelated groups fleeing conflict elsewhere could be absorbed into a powerful clan's territory, take its name for protection, fight under its banner, and be recorded, generation after generation, as if they had always belonged to the bloodline. The name offered shelter. It did not always reflect ancestry. This is where the science had to enter, and it entered through the Y chromosome specifically, because the Y chromosome does something no paper record can do. It tracks the direct paternal line, father to father to father, with a kind of fidelity that predates literacy itself. Autosomal DNA, the type used in most popular ancestry tests, blends every ancestral line together into an average. The Y chromosome does not blend. It preserves a single, largely unbroken thread, mutating only slightly across centuries, making it uniquely suited to testing whether men who shared a clan surname actually shared a common paternal ancestor, or simply shared a name. Large-scale surname DNA projects, cross-referencing Y chromosome haplotypes against documented clan genealogies, began finding a pattern that split cleanly into two groups. For several major clan names, a strong majority of tested men clustered within a small number of closely related haplogroups, a genetic fingerprint consistent with descent from a single founding lineage, exactly as clan tradition claimed. For other names, especially several of the rarer, more regionally scattered ones, the results fractured. Multiple unrelated paternal lineages, sharing nothing genetically beyond the name itself. That was not a contradiction. It was a signal. If stories like this, where the paper trail and the genome tell two different histories, are the kind of thing you find compelling, this is a good moment to subscribe, because the deeper this goes, the less simple clan starts to look. The conflict did not resolve there. It widened, because among the 13 rare surnames under closer study, a smaller subset produced something genuinely unexpected. Men whose Y chromosome haplogroups did not simply fail to match their clan's dominant lineage. They matched haplogroups strongly associated with Scandinavian, and in a smaller number of cases, broader North Atlantic and continental European populations, arriving in the highlands and islands centuries before the clan structure as we understand it had even formed. This should not, on its own, be shocking. Norse settlement and raiding along Scotland's western coast and northern islands between the 9th and 13th centuries is well documented archaeologically and historically. What surprised researchers was where these signals turned up, embedded not in the coastal, historically Norse-influenced clans where such ancestry would be expected, but occasionally in interior highland lineages, far from the traditional Viking settlement zones, carrying names with no recorded Scandinavian association whatsoever. Explanations emerged, and none of them could be dismissed outright. The first, an early founder effect layered over an already mixed population. A Norse-descended man, several generations removed from any Scandinavian identity, could rise within a Gaelic-speaking community, found a lineage, and have that lineage's Y chromosome carry the ancient signal forward for 800 years, entirely disconnected from any Norse cultural memory by the time surnames solidified in the late medieval period. The second, clan absorption. As one Highland power absorbed a defeated or displaced smaller group, something clan warfare made a near-constant feature of Highland life for centuries. The incoming men would take the dominant clan surname while carrying their own, entirely separate paternal ancestry forward, undetected until Y chromosome testing made the split visible. The third, and the one clan historians find hardest to accept, multiple independent founding events. Rather than one patriarch, some clan names may have crystallized from several smaller, unrelated kin groups that happen to share a territory, a chief's protection, or a common enemy, and only later became narratively compressed into a single founding legend, the way oral tradition tends to simplify complicated histories into cleaner ones. The most decisive evidence came not from any single family's test, but from broader academic population studies comparing Highland and Island Y chromosome diversity against both medieval Scandinavian reference populations and wider British and Irish datasets. These larger studies, drawing on hundreds of samples rather than a handful of enthusiastic genealogists, allowed researchers to move past anecdote and calculate actual probabilities. How likely a shared haplotype was to reflect genuine common descent within a clan-relevant timeframe versus how likely it was to be background noise shared across the wider British Isles population. The results, for a meaningful cluster of the 13 surnames studied, held up. The paternal lineages were too concentrated, too specific, and too rare in the general population to be coincidence. Something real was being preserved, not the whole clan, but distinct, identifiable threads within it, some Gaelic in deep origin, some Norse, and at least one signal in a landlocked Highland lineage that researchers describe, cautiously, as more consistent with continental European ancestry than with anything typically found in the region at all. Not the ancestry the clan legend prepared anyone for. Not even the region the legend assumed. The surprise was not that Highland bloodlines had mixed with outsiders. Every population on Earth has mixed with outsiders. The surprise was how early some of that mixing occurred, how thoroughly it was absorbed into a name that later generations would treat as pure, singular, and unbroken. The genome was not erasing the clan story. It was revealing an older, more crowded history underneath it, one the tartan was never designed to show. This matters beyond 13 rare surnames and the enthusiasts who research them. It touches something larger about how identity survives contact with evidence. Clans, like nations, like ethnic groups everywhere, have always told themselves origin stories that are cleaner than the underlying biology. A single founder is easier to carry across centuries of emigration and loss than a tangled, contested, politically negotiated alliance of unrelated families. But the DNA does not care what is easier to carry. It preserves what actually happened: mixture, absorption, conquest, refuge, and reinvention, layered quietly beneath a name that looks, on the surface, like a simple family line. Picture a sea loch on a gray highland morning, mist sitting low over black water, a single boat pulled up on shingle where it has likely been pulled up for 1,000 years. Somewhere above the treeline, the ruined foot of a broch or a chapel marks where a small, forgotten community once lived under a chief whose name has not survived in any written record. It is easy, standing in a place like this, to imagine one long unbroken bloodline running from that ruin to the present. It is harder and truer to imagine what actually happened. Boats arriving from the north, alliances shifting after a single bad harvest, a defeated family absorbed rather than destroyed, a name changing hands, a lineage continuing under a banner it was not born into. The land remembers none of this cleanly. The genome remembers almost all of it. So where does that leave the 13 rare surnames the story began with? Not diminished and not disproven. If anything, they are more remarkable than the simple version ever allowed. A clan name tested carefully against modern population genetics does not hand back a single tidy patriarch and a satisfying full stop. It hands back a layered, occasionally contested, sometimes genuinely surprising paternal history, one that may include a Gaelic founder, a Norse settler absorbed 2 centuries later, a defeated rival family folded quietly into the winning side, and a modern descendant who has spent their whole life assuming the tartan told the whole truth. If this kind of evidence-driven, myth-testing history is what keeps you watching, let me know in the comments which surname or clan I should look into next. There is a great deal more hidden beneath these names than most family trees admit. The old story treated a clan surname as a single bloodline, unbroken since some half-legendary chief first raised his banner over a glen. The DNA evidence suggests something closer to a confederation preserved in a single word, Gaelic, Norse, and occasionally something further afield, absorbed, renamed, and carried forward together under one name because, in the end, survival mattered more than purity, and belonging was always something the Highlands were willing to negotiate. Somewhere right now, a descendant, wearing a clan tartan at a wedding or a Highland Games has no idea that the Y chromosome sitting quietly inside every cell of their body may be one of the last living witnesses to an alliance struck, or a defeat survived, centuries before their surname was ever written down. The name looks like an answer. It was always a question.